Excited to be here and to talk about this subject, which is very near and dear to my heart. I'll start with a little confession, and that is sometimes I feel what you might call survivor's guilt, because everything I do for a living is what I love. It's my passion. It feels like the thing that I was built for. It feels like my soul's calling. And I look around at a lot of people just kind of grinding it out, in whatever kind of job they have, and feeling like their life is kind of, happening to them, rather than them being the creators of their life. And makes me really sad. And, I had the good fortune of coming from parents who were also following their passion. I had parents who were filmmakers and artists. And so anyway, my heart goes out to people who aren't really feeling like they are in touch with their soul's calling or able to live it the way that they want. And that's what we're here to remedy. And there's some basic assumptions that I'm operating from in order to do this work. So let me trot those out and see if you can hang with those assumptions, or at least take them on in a tentative way and see what that might shift for you if you did. First of all, one of my assumptions, one of my operating premises is that everybody is built for something. Everybody has this kind of unique calling. You could call it sort of like a psychological or spiritual fingerprint that is uniquely them. They are uniquely qualified to share certain kinds of gifts. There's certain kind of gifts which are the natural fruit of their personality, their history, their psychology. Second premise is that even though consciously, right now, they may not be very in touch with that at all, and most people aren't. But the second premise is that on some level, probably unconsciously, there is a part of them that knows very well about that purpose, that calling. There's a part of you that knows exactly what you're here to do. And theoretically could tell you all about it. But then the question is, well, if a part of me knows what I'm here to do, how come I don't think I know? Here comes premise number 3, that there are other parts of you that are scared shitless of your purpose. There are other parts of you that have various concerns that they are afraid your purpose would violate. Maybe it would be too much work, or it would be too hard, or you would get broke if you tried to follow it, or other people would think you were weird, or you'd just be deluding yourself with delusions of grandeur, or all kinds of objections that little parts of you come up with to scare them and scare you out of being able to hear the still small voice that knows about your purpose. Premise number 4 is that we can work with those other parts, those scared parts, and get their cooperation, their willingness to work in tandem with you in discovering and potentially living your purpose. You can create more inner harmony, inner alignment, and therefore gain that access to the part of you that does know your purpose. Okay, so those are my premises. I hope they They make sense to you. And they also explain why this way of working with purpose is very different than most of what's out there. Frankly, I was already partly in the process of living my purpose because I was well set up for that by my family, by my upbringing that always said, follow your passion. And so I was already well on my way, but still had many questions about clarifying my purpose and who I'm here to serve and stuff. And when I looked around at other purpose approaches, they mostly were all up here. They were all about like, okay, let's sit down with paper and pencil and figure out what you're supposed to do and blah, blah, blah. And it left me kind of cold and confused. And this is a deep psychological or spiritual or soul-oriented way of working with purpose, which is very different than that. It's actually about receiving information. It's an intuitive kind of process rather than a heady, figure it out kind of process. And many years ago, I did something related to this with my dear friend, Tim Kelly, who is a friend of mine and whose book we will use as a text in the upcoming purpose course that we're going to do. And I did that course with him and it blew my mind. It was awesome. And it just like, wow, it rocked my world. So I incorporated that into what I do and added some of my flair and flavor and perspective. And I'm really happy to share it with you because I think it's a very unique and powerful approach to this question of how you can live a life of passion and purpose. So I'm going to show you a little model related to all of that. Are there any burning chat questions that came up in response to anything I already said, John or Manal?
Not yet. I think people are just taking it in so far.
Good. Well, dig this little diagram. I'm going to flesh it out for you. This is what I call 5 concentric circles of self. And it's just a model, of course, but a way of understanding purpose. So this outer circle here is what I call our conscious, everyday personality. I'm going to fill it in here for you. So this is your conscious personality, the outer ring. That doesn't show up mirror image for you, does it, John? That shows up correctly, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was good.
You can read it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So your conscious personality is, the thoughts that you're aware of having throughout your day and the way that normal people go about their lives. And at the level of conscious personality, people often feel like they don't know their purpose, or they kind of know their purpose, but it would be too difficult to try to pursue it, or if only they could live a life of purpose, but blah, 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 blah. So that's sort of like the front door. And most people, that's how most people live their lives. But if you start to scratch below the surface and you start inquiring about who inside of you, what parts of you are scared or opposed to your purpose, then you start to dig below the surface and find what I'm going to call the defenses. The defenses. These are subconscious instead of fully conscious, because most of the time we're not really noticing Oh, there's a little voice in my head. I'm going to call them subconscious subpersonalities. Subconscious subpersonalities here. These are self-protective parts of you. If you start to really pay close attention to yourself, you notice that you are not one personality. You are a lot of little voices and reactions in your head, sometimes which seem completely opposed to each other. For instance, there's been a lot of talk about the inner critic. The inner critic is a often subconscious subpersonality part of you. And that inner critic might be warring with another part of you, which is the one who's saying, oh, but I'm doing the best I can, blah, blah, blah. We might call that a child part of you or something. But there's all these different voices and subpersonalities inside of you, many of which have conflicting agendas. So when you dig beneath the surface of conscious personality, you discover this state of inner conflict of all these subpersonalities. These subpersonalities, most of them, are there to protect you. Believe it or not, even the inner critic that talks to you in a mean way sometimes is there to try to protect you. Now, he or she may be doing so in what seems like a very unuseful or misguided way, but they're trying to protect you. Like maybe if I criticize you hard enough, you'll try harder, you'll do more. Maybe if I criticize you, then you won't be surprised and shocked if somebody else says something to you. They have these there might be another self-protective part that's about, impression management and making sure you look good. There's another part that's about, worrying about money and making sure that you have enough. So these subconscious personalities, subpersonalities, are there to try to protect you. And most people, when they glimpse those, say, oh shit, that's terrible. Like I have an inner critic, that's bad. I wish I didn't have an inner critic. I should get rid of my inner critic. Guess what just happened? Your inner critic jumped back here and started criticizing your inner critic. It doesn't work. Fighting against the voices that are fighting in there already doesn't work. You actually have to learn how to draw them out, give them a kind of love and listening that they've never had before, and start to make peace with them. In fact, in the purpose work process that we do, we start to ask them what they need and make deals with them. Okay, all right. I commit myself to doing X, Y, and Z to help you relax. Now, as we really start to engage these subconscious subpersonalities, we realize that the reason they are there in the first place is because of the wound. Let's face it, everybody coming into this life gets wounded in some way. There's some pain that you encounter in the way that you were raised, or the body you were born into, or the circumstances of your life that were painful. And you developed these subconscious subpersonalities, these self-protective parts of yourself in response to that wound. The little kid got wounded and is like, this hurts. And those little subpersonalities started developing in response to that wound to try to protect you. But here's the thing. From their point of view, from the defensive point of view, the wound is just a problem. But from our point of view, from the point of view of purpose and your soul's calling, I would say that that wound is not a mistake. It's not a problem. It's your curriculum. It's your curriculum. It's the raw materials for what you're here to share with the world. If you will, it's the shit that you've been handed that you need to compost so that you can grow beautiful flowers with it. Which is why I don't just call it the wound. I call it the sacred wound. The sacred wound. Now, it's just a pretty story, perhaps, but I would say that it's no mistake, the wound that you've been handed. It is a perfect opportunity for you to learn and grow in a very specific way that's unique to you. And out of doing that kind of learning and growing that's unique to you, learning to share gifts with the world that are unique to you, and that will speak especially to other people with similar kinds of sacred wounds. Usually, just one second here, usually that sacred wound is unconscious, but you can dig down and get in touch with it. And when you start really getting in touch with it and listening to it and asking what it needs from you, you will start to get information from an even deeper layer than the sacred wound, what I call the soul. Now, you don't have, if you're not, spiritual or whatever, that doesn't matter. You don't need to call it your soul. You can call it your deep unconscious. You can call it the place in you that creates dreams. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had some amazing dreams that blew my mind and taught me about how to live my life. And if you have a dream like that, well, I didn't think that up. Where did that come from? From this deeper layer that I'm calling your soul. But you can call it whatever you like. You can call it your higher guidance or your intuition or your deep unconscious or whatever you like. And your soul will start to give you information about how to respond creatively to your sacred wound in a whole new way. If we've done a good job of dealing with the defenses so that they start to relax and there starts to be less inner warfare and more inner alignment, inner peace, then we can access the sacred wound more directly. And then the soul can start telling us about how to respond to the sacred wound instead of the defenses automatically and unconsciously responding to the sacred wound in the same old way that they always have. The soul's response to your sacred wound is different. It's truly healing. It's truly transformational. And to be honest, the soul doesn't matter if it hurts some. And these guys, the automatic defenses, they're just all about must avoid pain at all costs. The soul doesn't look at it that way. The soul says, yeah, we may hurt some. We may engage in some, what Carl Jung called legitimate suffering, the pain of true growth. But guess what? These unconscious defenses, they think they're protecting you from pain, but when you live from this place all the time, it's actually very painful. And that's what Carl Jung called illegitimate suffering. the suffering of just kind of banging your head against the wall in the same way over and over again. Whereas down here, the legitimate suffering, the soul's growing pains are challenging but evolutionary, transformational. And so you find that your purpose, your soul's calling, is first and foremost intended for you. You are the first one that you need to save with your purpose. This is a very important point and greatly misunderstood, because a lot of people want to run out there and save the world, right? Guess where that motivation is coming from? It's coming from their defenses. Oh, if I can just save the world, I'll be a cool person. People will respect me. That will make me good enough or important or blah, blah, blah. So that is a misguided, in my humble opinion, way of trying to realize purpose. The truth is, you need to save yourself. You need to discover the particular kind of healing and growth and transformation that you need for yourself and start to live that. And then you are qualified to go out and share what you know from personal experience, not just some, cool thing you read in a book or some insight you had on an ayahuasca journey or something like that, but something that you have lived. Get excited about this. So that I would say that soul is in touch with, you can call it spirit, you can call it what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, this soul of the universe, some part of you that transcends you. It's not you anymore, it's bigger, it's everything, it's all. And the all can communicate through the soul, or whatever you want to call that, to you. And the all, the universe, designed you in this specific way to live, to learn certain lessons, to share certain gifts, to live a certain way. I'm going to call the soul deep unconscious. But here's the thing. As we start to do this work, places in us that were unconscious become more conscious. So it's like we start drilling down, drilling down through the everyday personality, down into these subconscious sub-personalities, discovering these self-protective parts of ourselves and the voices that are scared or at war with each other, making peace with them, drilling down into the raw stuff of this sacred wound, drilling down into this soulful part of you that can give you information about what you're truly called to do. And it sounds a little perhaps buzzy woo-woo or out there to you. I don't know, it could. But I will tell you that having engaged in this process and supported other people in engaging in this process, when that communication starts to happen, it will blow your mind. It blew my mind. We do a very specific kind of journaling as part of this work that Carl Jung called active imagination, or which you could call prayer, or which you could call whatever you want. But it's about establishing an open line of communication between you and this intuition, higher guidance, soul, whatever you want to call it. And when you do that, you can actually start getting into these spaces where it feels like you're asking very clear questions and getting downloads of information that seem like what the hell? Where did that come from? I have been in the situation of feeling like I was just taking dictation and trying to keep up with this beautiful, beautiful information that felt so right on and made tears run down my eyes. And it's like finding a coach or a guide or a teacher inside yourself that knows you so well that everything they say is spot on. So it takes a while for some people to get to that point. I will admit, you cannot be guaranteed of like, okay, 3 weeks into the course, I will have that kind of information. No, it may not be. But here's the thing. Until you get down to that soul level of information, you're still living your purpose, because bringing love and healing to these defenses and starting to bring a new kind of healing to your sacred wound, that too is your life purpose. The way that I would like to put it is that, serving the world, being of contribution to others is a very important part of your purpose. But prior to that is learning to love yourself. So your first foundational purpose is learning to love yourself better. And when you do a good job of learning to love yourself, that's what makes you qualified to spread the love in the world. And people who try to save the world, who haven't truly learned to love themselves, are not that much good to the world, because they are indirectly trying to take care of their own woundedness by saving others, which is, big mistake in my humble opinion. Okay, so hopefully that paradigm, that framework has intrigued you and brought up some questions. I invite you to start asking me some questions. And I want to tell you that, of course, this is just a real brief introduction to terrain that is powerful and that takes a bunch of time to master. And so, not surprisingly, we're offering an online course that I'm really excited to share with people. It's going to take 10 weeks, and it's going to have opportunities for live Zoom calls where we give you live coaching and answer your questions, and you're going to be going through a book and listening to lessons and journaling. It'll require your commitment. It will require some commitment on your part. But if you do it, wow, like I said, for me, my personal experience, if you really commit yourself to the process, blow your mind, open your heart, change your life. So we'll talk a little bit more about that course in a few moments. But right now, just opening up the lines for any questions about living a life of passion and purpose.
All right, thanks, Tabor. We got a couple written in calls, and I'll also just invite anyone to, if you have any specific questions that you want to talk to Tabor with live, which we encourage you to do as a part of intensifying the experience, just raise your hand and we'll bring you on as a video chat. So think about that. Yeah, think about that, your toughest questions, whatever you got. And we're going to just start, though, with a few questions that were written in. So Tabor, the first one here is, where is it? Oh, yeah. So I've done a lot of work with purpose, and mostly it's about asking questions and writing answers. So what place does asking questions and journaling fit into this process?
It's a great question. And we do asking questions and journaling too, but we do it in a completely different way than most of those courses do. Because most of those courses don't take this kind of architecture of the ego and the soul and the personality into account. They think that I can just ask your conscious personality some questions, and you can give me the right answers. I say no, completely wrong, completely confused, because most of the self-information that you get is all filtered through all these defenses. It's all so noisy and confusing in there that oftentimes people find that kind of exercise of asking yourself questions and writing down the answers frustrating, because they're like, well, I don't know, it could be this or it could be that, or it could be, well, guess what? That's because all those conflicting voices are in your head. Or other people will write down an answer but be like, you know, is that right, or am I just telling myself that? So that approach is takes too much for granted. It imagines that your conscious mind, your regular everyday conscious mind, has all the answers, and it doesn't. With these deep soul questions, I like to say they're far too important to be entrusted to your conscious mind. Your conscious mind is like this little tip of the iceberg, and the iceberg is much deeper. So we're working our way down in stages. We're first engaging those voices in your head which are afraid of purpose. Those other approaches you're talking about don't even address the fact that there's huge resistance inside of you to knowing and living your purpose. Huge, or you would be knowing it and doing it already. So the first level that we deal with is the resistance. And we treat it with honor, with respect, with reverence even. And we start to engage all that resistance and create friends out of those protectors so that they will be willing to stand aside and let us move through to deeper levels of information. And when you start asking questions or journaling with access to those deep, deep places in yourself, like I said, it will blow you away. You know, you'll be crying while you're writing, or you'll get chills when you hear an answer. I'm not New Age. There's no part of me that you could call New Age, but it is, for lack of a better word, when you really set up that connection, almost like channeling or something. It's like getting information that you don't feel like you're making up. It feels like it's coming through you. It's like when I play music, the best music I play is the music that I have the least to do with. It's when my ego gets out of the way and music starts pouring through. And that's how this is. So it's art. It's not a heady exercise. Thank you for that great question.
All right, Tabor, we're going to go to a live call now, live question. So Begonia, you are up. I'm going to promote you to a panelist and turn your video camera on.
Begonia, there she is.
Hi.
Joining us from Amsterdam, are you?
Yes, I am in Amsterdam. How are you?
I'm very good.
Well, I have a question very much related to what you just have been explaining. So about our personality, or my personality, and I have, of course, I was born in a rise in a place, or in a way, with a religion or without a religion or whatever, and that is how I grow up. And of course, I have my sacred boon. And my question is, we can work a lot on that sacred wound, and I imagine is about a lot of this healing is about a lot of acceptance of yourself as well.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
and in this acceptance, what I am fighting, or I think I'm fighting, It's with my beliefs, the ones I grow up with, which I imagine is those defenses and the inner critic. Yeah, it's all
Exactly.
involved. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
is it that we make this circle that I found it very difficult for me to break that circle, and then I'm wondering, okay, still I have to go deeper in my own acceptance, because that's
Yeah.
the key point, right?
Yes. Let me address exactly what
Yeah.
you just said. So these defenses that arise in response to the wound, which they don't see as sacred, these defenses are completely organized around not accepting. They don't want to accept anything. Your defenses, these self-protective subpersonalities, are about fighting and resisting whatever is. They are not about accepting. They're not interested in it. They run on fear, and they're afraid that acceptance means annihilation. So,
Yep.
yes, they are not about acceptance. Ironically, what we have to do is start by accepting them, accepting their lack of acceptance, accepting how afraid they are, accepting how they want to fight, accepting the non-acceptance that rages inside of us. So it's kind of it's a paradox. What usually happens is,
Yeah, but it's about,
go ahead.
no, I was thinking that what you resist, it persists, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly. What you resist persists. So we start to become aware of these self-protective, fear-based parts inside, and our usual response to them is to judge them. But that's just more of the same. That's just another layer of resistance and fighting that gets layered on top of the first one. So we learn specific skills for dealing with those self-protective parts in an accepting way, in a way that invites them to let down their guard and relax. And then once they are well accepted, they will step aside some and let you access the wound more directly. And then you can start to deal with the wound in a accepting way. And you start to bring love and acceptance to the wound directly instead of fighting it the way that you usually have. And then out of that acceptance of the wound springs your true healing, your true gift, your true purpose. So yes, very, very good question. And it is very much about a whole new kind of acceptance, which is another word for love. Basically, self-love and then learning to spread your love to other people is one shorthand way of saying what your purpose is. But everybody's flavor of love, the flavor of love that they need to give themselves, the flavor of love that they're here to share with the world is different, unique.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say a couple more words about the course that we've got coming up. It starts in a couple weeks, I believe. What's the date that we start that?
So yeah, so the course, the launch of the first module will be, so basically every Friday. So it's a 10-week course, and every Friday there's a release of the module, and then we have every other week we have a live call with everybody and Tabor, and it will start Friday, March 30th. So that's in about 2 weeks, and it'll go all the way until June 13th, which is about 10 weeks. So Fridays the module is opened up. Then you'll be able to work on it all throughout the week. And then every 2 weeks, we'll have a live call. So there's a lot of grist for the mill that Tabor will be able to work on and answer.
So immediately as we start to talk about this, probably there are parts of you that maybe even your soul that get excited and say, ooh, that could be cool. And then there's other parts of you, those self-protective parts that kick in and start saying, oh yeah, but that sounds like a lot of work, or what's it cost, or blah, 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 blah. So I want to lovingly speak to your fears or concerns and entice your soul that that this is potential. If your soul says this isn't for me, perfect, sayonara. I'm not here to persuade anyone who's not called to do this. But first of all, yes, the course will require some work. I would encourage you to commit 3 or 4 hours a week to it if you can, more if you're able, because you'll need to listen to the lesson, you'll need to do some reading, you'll need to do some journaling or meditating, check in with your buddy. You're going to have a purpose buddy that you connect with to talk about how your homework went and stuff like that. And then we'll have the coaching calls where we all get on and talk together. You can ask questions, I can give you coaching and stuff like that. So yeah, it will require commitment on your part. As I say, for me, I went through this process years ago and I really applied myself. Revolutionary for me, changed my life in all kinds of ways. Practical information, even, you know, I'm an entrepreneur in the sense of being a teacher of transformation and workshop leader and whatnot. And I got information that was directly applicable to like marketing and how I offer my work. And, you know, it was deep, but it was also very practical. So it was undoubtedly worth it to me. And the next way is it was worth it to me financially. It was worth it to me financially, even though I paid like $1,500 to do the course that I did. We want to try to make it broadly accessible. So I think we're offering this one for just under $500, $495 or something like that. And that is just, you know, super inexpensive as far as I'm concerned for what you can get out of it if you really feel called and you apply yourself. And we're even going to give a code today, I think, for people to get a further discount if you're somebody who's like, oh, I really want to do it, and even $500 is going to break the bank, then we've got a discount for you to make it even more accessible. But yes, it'll be some work. Yes, it's more than worth the money. What other fears can come up?
I got one here that this was a question that came in. It said the person is doing a lot of kind of self-growth stuff right now. They ask how much time commitment. You've kind of talked about that, 3 to 4 hours a week, more if you can. And then asks, well, can I still be doing other self-growth things at the same time, or does this need to be my focus? So that may be a concern out there.
No, I mean, you can do other things at the same time. I wouldn't do them if they're based on an extremely different paradigm, you know, like if it was some personal growth that was all about kind of, you know, the discipline of total self-mastery through willpower or something like that, that wouldn't really be compatible, because we're about learning to listen to and love and not judge whatever shows up inside of us. And we're based on the paradigm that there's nothing wrong in here. There's actually no problem. There's actually nothing that needs to be fixed. There's pain that wants to be healed, but there's nothing wrong, and there's no part of you that doesn't deserve to be loved and accepted. So if your other work is in line with that, then sure. I, for instance, would highly recommend meditation in conjunction with this work. And some of my purpose information came when I was in the middle of silent seated meditation, and then it just boom, it just kind of landed in my lap. So because I'd been doing all the other work leading up to it. So yeah, definitely compatible with many other things. there was one other. Oh, you know, is it for real? You know, is this, you know, some snake oil or something like that? And I can only tell you that I've worked with a lot of people, and my friend Tim has worked with a lot of people in a similar way, and I have applied it in my own life, and it's been revolutionary in my own life, and I've seen it be so in many other people's lives. So, you know, there's a lot of social proof, they call it, that it's helpful to a lot of us. And again, what I encourage you to do right now is say, wow, does all of this speak to me? Am I feeling called to do this? If you're feeling called to do this, then the only thing that will stop you will be these fearful defenses. The scary parts that are like the scared and scary parts that are trying to keep you from taking risks, even if those risks would be transformational for you. If you're not called to do it, then don't do it. I have zero interest in trying to sell someone on something. And I give you the respect to know that there is some part of you that knows what's truly good for you. So I invite you to just kind of like try to get calm, still enough right now. See if you can go beneath those fearful voices and ask, is this for me at this time? Am I called to do this? And check if you have a yes. And if you have a yes, we can totally make it work for you, and nothing should stand in your way.
All right, Tabor, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, again, what we're going to do, we're going to be reading from my dear friend Tim Kelly's book, True Purpose. We're going to be, you're going to be hearing recorded lessons from me. You're going to be hearing live lessons from me. You're going to be getting on calls where we interact live and you ask questions, do Q&A, get coaching. You're going to be doing journaling and meditations on your own. You're going to be sharing that information with your purpose buddy and getting support in that way, and having the chance online to ask questions and build a community of people who are going through this together. So it's going to be really rich. It's going to be really rich. When I did a version of this course many years ago, it was just telephone and emails. That was it. We didn't have all this newfangled fancy video and website and blah, blah, blah. So I'm excited to offer this rich offering to you, and I'm excited to see what we can do in 10 weeks.
The thing, Tabor, the thing too I like about all this is that we're always talking about most of the work that we all do, Tabor, myself and all, is all with people actually live together. And sometimes one-on-one coaching, that's most of it. And so finding a way, the Purpose Course actually fits the online model really well. It could be actually done probably in a 5-day all-intensive workshop too, but the fact that there's some space, no, you need more time here. So the online part actually really
much better for people to have time to integrate, because this isn't just about, getting some new information. It's about practicing and letting your psyche rearrange itself in response to the information and the practices and stuff. So yeah, I think it takes time. We could be doing it in an in-person group that met over quite a period of time, but that would make it much harder to reach a lot of people. And we want to, start building community globally. I, in fact, am leaving soon to Europe and will be teaching all over. And the last part of the course, I'll be talking to you from England and Germany and stuff like that. But we are building a worldwide transformational community, which I am completely stoked about. And I'm really looking forward to going more seriously into the online space in order to facilitate that building of global community.
All right, so I just got a couple of questions about this one aspect, and then I want to bring another person on to ask a live call about purpose in general. But
Yeah.
for those of you who might be thinking about whether you need Facebook or something like that, for the course itself, you don't need Facebook. At the end, we'll encourage people to, if they're on Facebook, join a group where we can kind of continue chatting and all. But for the course itself, you don't need Facebook. It all works on the curriculum software online, email, and then Zoom calls just like this.
Yep. We specifically, most people are on Facebook, but we specifically opted to make this group self-contained at our course website. So the only place you need to go is the course website, where you can listen to recordings, make comments, have conversations. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring on our good friend, Stephanie. You're coming on. There she is.
Hey there, Stephanie.
Hey, how are you?
Stephanie was just with us at an 8-day retreat down in LA that John organized and that we led down there in the Hollywood Hills. It was an amazing time. How are you now, Stephanie?
I'm doing really well, actually. I came back, had to decompress for a little bit, but since then, I've put out some feelers and I've actually gotten some opportunities to pursue. It's been a little slow here and things are starting to pick up, of course, all of a sudden. Thank you, John, for
Beautiful.
the workshop. But I guess my question is, you have your life's purpose, and then opportunities come. Do you have opportunities that would take you away from that, or are these opportunities things that you can do, and there might be some hitting something in there, like an agenda or something, where you take this on? It might not be what you initially want to do, but it can help in other ways, i.e. financially. And
This
also,
is a great question. I think
yeah.
I think I got it. This is a really good question, and I'm really glad you asked it.
Okay.
One of the ways that those subconscious subpersonalities get scared about knowing purpose, even being in touch with your purpose, is that they are terrified that, like mandatory schooling or something, once you know the purpose, you'll be obligated to live it 24/7. Oh my God, I'll be a slave to my purpose. I won't have any fun, or I'll go broke, or blah, blah, blah. So for our purposes in this course, having crystal clarity on your purpose doesn't in any way obligate you to live it.
Okay.
This is really important. You can know your purpose, have total clarity about it, and not feel any obligation to live it at all. In fact, having clarity about it just sort of begins the process of negotiation between what you might call your ego and your soul. Because as we were saying before, the ego, or these self-protective parts, are very concerned about comfort and protecting you from any kind of pain or discomfort. The soul doesn't actually give much of a shit about comfort. It's like, transformation, love is the answer, blah, blah, blah. But you both live in your body. So the purpose information needs to be engaged by your ego in a way that it feels good about.
Okay.
Now, the more clarity that you have about your purpose, then when those opportunities arise, you can check in with yourself. Is this opportunity purposeful for me or not? Now, if you're very committed to living your purpose and you feel like you can afford to or whatever, then maybe you only choose the things that feel purposeful to you. That's certainly the way that I mostly live, is that my life is organized around the things that I find purposeful. If you're super broke and living low on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you're worrying about keeping body and soul together and what you're going to eat, then you might choose a non-purposeful opportunity to get some nest egg together in the bank account before your ego says, okay, now I'm ready to try some more purpose stuff.
Okay.
But if you do get to the point where you really feel like you're living your purpose, then in my experience, purposeful opportunities start just flowing into your life. It's like grace, it's like, oh my God, when I started traveling the world to teach in countries all over the place, India and Europe and Caribbean, it came together with what seemed like very little effort on my part. I had dreamt about the possibility, I envisioned the possibility for years before, but when it actually happened, it just kind of like started coming together. And I felt sort of guilty, like, oh no, how can I have all of this goodness without having had to work harder for it? And again, the soul's not concerned about a little growing pains. The soul's also not concerned about fair. The soul's not concerned if things come too easily without you sweating for it. So that's the upside of the whole equation.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great question. You're not obligated. You're not obligated to live your purpose. It's your opportunity, and your fear can be attended to every step of the way. Your need for comfort. I'm not sure if it's purposeful for me to watch movies often, but I love watching movies often.
And there's
so
some good movies. And
I watch movies. I don't
great...
even care if they're good movies. I just like watching movies. So I do that whether it's purposeful or not. But the majority of my life feels like it's just drifting along on a river of purpose.
Nice.
All right.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tabor, just to throw on a question that's similar to what Stephanie asked, and you kind of touched on it, but I like this one. So one person wrote, suppose I discover or already know my life purpose. It's definitely aligned with my soul. Now I want to offer my gifts to the world. What if it doesn't meet an existing demand in the market? How do you address that?
Great question. I realize now that it's 1 o'clock. So just before I answer that question, I will say that, like I said, if you're somebody who knows you want to be part of this course, but is also concerned about the money, we're going to give you a discount code. It's only good for the next 2 days, 48 hours. And this is why. Because, like I said, if your soul is called to do this, then just do this. If those voices start coming in and stalling and warring with you about whether I should, whether I shouldn't, whether I should, whether I shouldn't, we don't want you to do that for the next couple of weeks. We want to encourage you to either stand powerfully in yes or stand powerfully in no. Whatever you're really called to do. Don't belabor it for a couple of weeks and try to decide. True intuitive wisdom comes in a flash. It's not something that you figure out over days and days of but if in the next 2 days I want to do this course, then we have a code for you that's purpose, right? Isn't that the...
Yeah, so the code is Purpose 2018. We'll put it in the box here, Purpose 2018. 18, and that drops the price $75 from $497 to around $425.
Cool.
Purpose 2008 and that's really just for people who have like basically got on here to be on this call. So they've showed that initial interest.
And frankly, if you happen to see this call later, you see a recording of this call later, and you really want to be in the course, and you're super broke, then reach out to me, and we can probably arrange a scholarship. But you know, I gotta say, this is, for what you're getting, this is really inexpensive. You know, when I work with people one-on-one, it's like $250 an hour, and you're gonna get, you know, like a whole intensive program for 10 weeks. So it's peanuts already if you're called to do this work. If you're not, then might seem like a lot of money. But if you know that you're called, you know you're going to apply yourself, then what you're going to get out of it is worth so much more. So let money be no object, please. The question, right. Remind me of it again. Sorry.
Yeah, so the question is, suppose I've discovered or I already know my life purpose and it's definitely aligned with my soul. Now I want to offer my gifts to the world. What if it doesn't meet an existing demand in the market? How do you address that?
Right. Marketers talk, the way that marketers talk to entrepreneurs is scan the market and look for a need and then create an offering to fill that need. Makes perfect sense in the realm of business. This approach is the other way around. It's like, what are you truly, really and truly called to give? What does the universe want from you? And in our experience, when you really get in touch with that and really get into the flow of that, you will start to tap into and connect with the people who hear your offering. You start putting your message out into the world. This is what I'm here to give. And the people who are also here to learn similar lessons will magnetically be attracted to you. If you do a good enough job of just putting it out there, sharing your gift, then the people will come. It's sort of like, if you build it, they will come kind of thing, you know. There is a little bit of art to learning to put it out there in a way that other people understand and are motivated by. So there is still a little bit of, if you're going to become an entrepreneur and make your living from your purpose, there is still a little finesse involved in marketing, but it can be purposeful marketing, not the kind where you're like, you know, a used car salesman or putting stuff out there that you feel kind of icky about, but rather you're sharing your gifts, you're sharing your passion with the world in all of your marketing. This what we're doing now is technically marketing, but it's not, it feels like living my passion, living my purpose to be on here like this with you. So yeah, there's a little bit of skill involved in marketing your purpose, but basically once you really are in the flow of living your purpose, we say the universe will provide the opportunities that you need to serve other people. And if something's and if that's just not happening, then there's some kind of obstacle that needs your love and attention to be healed, so that things can start flowing again.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Tabor. So we're at 110. Anyone who wants to also ask Tabor a question, or even a question about some of the blocks they've had to finding their purpose, Tabor is available. Just raise your hand there. And I've got a question for you, Tabor, written in that I love, because being slightly allergic to woo-woo as well. And I like how the language sometimes takes on that feel for some people. So this question goes like this. Isn't finding purpose or your one purpose a bit overblown and stems from a more religious context? Isn't the reality that there is no meaning except what we give it? And the toughest part is committing to something we come up with. Isn't all of this really just a way to comfort the meaninglessness of life? I love
Yes,
it. I love that
yes,
question. Beautifully said.
beautiful. Asked by a good existentialist philosopher there.
Exactly.
And so, yes and no from my standpoint. Yes and no. I would agree that that from a certain perspective, life is meaningless. There is no good or bad. There is no way that you should be. There is no right or wrong about any of this stuff. On the other hand, in my personal experience, the existentialist approach to purpose, which is like, I'll just pull one out of my ass, and the purpose of my life is whatever I say it is, because that's what I chose and that's what I commit to. For me, that rings hollow, just from personal experience and from working with people and stuff. For instance, this may sound a little woo-woo in and of itself, but when I was 16, I had a personal conversion experience. I kind of hit bottom in one way in my life. I had left home when I was 15. I was working crappy jobs, blah, blah, blah. And I reached this crisis point. I had been addicted before that. I reached this crisis point where for a couple of weeks, this torrent of painful, dark dreams started pouring through me. I was like, oh my God, what is all of this shit? And at the end of that couple of weeks or whatever, I had this dream that was like a vision for my whole life. It was a purposeful dream that speaks to me to this day. And after that, my life changed completely. My addiction was gone overnight. I lied my way into university and started going to university at 16 with a 6th grade education, and took off and discovered more about psychology and spirituality and stuff like that. And there have been other potent turning points like that since. And to me, that experience was given. It was not something that I just sort of, frankly, the existentialist position gives far too much credit to the conscious mind and far too little credit to deep unconscious forces we do not understand. And in my experience, those deep unconscious forces are informing your life all the time in ways that you're not consciously aware of. And if you start to clear out some of the clutter and quiet some of the noise, then you can have the experience of being guided by life. And I know that, that doesn't sound very existentialist, but it's my experience. And you don't have to believe in God. You don't have to, you don't have to call it anything in particular, but it is a different experience than imagining that you make up all of the significant aspects of your own life. It's also different than believing in any of your stories about life, or good or bad or right or wrong. When I am able to tap into those places, I get this deep sense of no good, no bad. It's all love, frankly. and existentialists don't like to talk about love that much, but I'll admit I am an undercover love agent, and that's what this is about.
I got a question, Tabor, for you coming up about love. I just wanted to throw in there that actually one of my passions and interest is curriculum development. And so with this new software that we're using, sometimes I've found on online courses that you sort of get lost. It's like in email boxes and you kind of don't know what's going on. So we've structured this really in a way that tries to like maximize or at least attend to the fact that we often get very distracted on the computer, multitasking and all this stuff. So the course is laid out really clearly with like to-dos that show you how far you've finished, how much more you have to do, just to help kind of offset that, oh gosh, the computer, there's so much going on there. So I just wanted to flag that we've put a lot of attention to actually like how the course will be brought out online.
John has done a beautiful job of creating the course website and making it super user friendly and attractive, and you'll be able to ask questions and get answers on there. It's going to be, I'm really looking forward. I've done a version of this course before that was much more primitive. John has brought it into the 21st century. It's really beautiful.
So I was kind of saying that because one of my passions and a kind of love comes from really thinking about how people go through this and can it be organized well for them so they get a lot out of it. So Tabor, one of the questions came in, as you said, you're sort of love is kind of the underlying thing of what you're doing. So someone asked, I might have missed it, but Tabor's using the word love. Has he defined or described what he means by love, right? So that's one question. And it connects with, can you please speak more about identifying and creating friends with our defenses? I see them kind of as two questions coming together. And that might be good. We're at 118, might be a way to kind of give a big picture rounding
Bring
us
it on home.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good point. I throw around words like love, taking them somewhat for granted. Very good for me to define my terms. By love, I mean a kind of compassionate awareness and friendliness toward experience, toward your own experience, toward other people's experiences. By love, I do not mean anything like romantic love or, fluffy clouds and unicorns and rainbows or Hallmark card love. Real love is courageous. Real love is a kind of a willingness to engage and connect with what is. But real love doesn't make anything wrong. It's not about fixing things. It's not about improving things. It's about accepting things. And when you use this kind of transformational love to embrace what really is, then that acceptance in and of itself becomes transformational. So love is transformational, but not by, judging and fixing and problem solving. It's by a deeper kind of listening and acceptance and courage and openness. That may still be vague, but it gives you a little bit of a sense of what I'm talking about. And in terms of the second part about befriending the defenses, that is a practical application of what I'm calling love. So when you start to get hip to these subconscious subpersonalities, these voices in your head, you start to notice a lot of them are not very kind. A lot of them are judgmental or critical or angry or very fearful and, worried. It might be the inner critic that's saying like, oh, if you try to do this, it's just going to be like all the other courses you fucked up, or you won't follow through, or oh, that's the inner critic, or an outer judge like me. Oh, that guy's just another new age hippie trying to sell you some blah, blah, blah. Whatever. You hear these voices in your head and you start to realize that they are judgmental or critical or angry or fearful. Your usual response before you even notice it is to start criticizing the criticism. Oh God, look at that. That's an ugly way to think, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that fucking inner critic. I hate my inner critic. That is actually just more of the same. That's sort of as if the fearful, critical self just jumped back and said, haha, now I'm going to criticize criticism without and fool you out of noticing that I'm just more criticism. So the radical alternative is you start to bring love and acceptance to these parts. You start saying, oh wow, yeah, you're really afraid that I won't complete on this course if I get it, and then I'll feel what? Humiliated. So you're trying to protect me from the embarrassment of trying and failing. Tell me more. Tell me about what you're trying to protect me from. Tell me about what you really want for me. Tell me about your history. You start taking this kind of active, friendly, curious, accepting interest in all of your experience and cultivating the attitude that none of it deserves rejection. None of it is to be looked down upon. All of it is trying to serve the greater good, although some of it is doing so in a misguided and ignorant sort of way. And so you start re-educating those parts of yourself that are deluded or ignorant and reactive out of fear. And as they start listening to you, as they start feeling listened to by you, they start sharing themselves more openly. And you might even strike a deal with them, like if one of them's really concerned about money and like you're going to make us broke pursuing this purpose stuff, you can strike a deal with it. Well, how much would I need to have in the bank as a cushion for you to feel okay about me pursuing purpose? How about if I agreed that I will maintain a bank balance of XYZ, and if it dips below that I pause the purpose thing and make money the most efficient way I can? For some person, that might be a breakthrough. That might be a big relief. Other people are built differently and they're comfortable flying by the seat of my pants. Well, money just appears when I need it, Okay, they have a different psychology. Or, somebody is afraid that they're going to come across like too much of a inflated charlatan. So they make a deal with that part of themselves that's afraid of that they will get some friends to kind of consult with them about how am I coming across? Do I seem real and authentic to you? And so you can listen to those parts and even take them on as kind of advisors for your greater purpose. It's sort of like they're troubleshooters and you say, okay, welcome. Let me see how I can address your concerns, instead of fighting with yourself. And then when they get more out of the way and get more cooperative and you drill down to the level of the sacred wound, then it is this love, it is this acceptance, it is this compassion that will help you start to heal that at a deeper level. It's this willingness to be with yourself right in the middle of those hard places. This patience and kindness toward the parts of yourself that you tend to avoid, that are painful. And it is out of that love that your creative response comes. And your purpose is not a job. Your purpose is not a particular job description. Your purpose is a way of living life and an impact that you have on yourself and that you have on other people. You could do a lot of different jobs with your same purpose. So for instance, for me personally, one way of describing my purpose, which as I said earlier, came to me in meditation actually, was you are here, I am here to help people get to really know and love their own insides, the light and the dark, and then to open-heartedly share themselves with others, creating deep, soulful connection. Now, I am the first recipient of that purpose. So I am here to help myself get to really know and love my own insides, the light and the dark within me, and then to open-heartedly share myself with others and create deep, soulful connection with others. So hopefully this call is an expression of that purpose. So is for me playing music. The way that I play music is going inside, getting to know and love myself, open-heartedly sharing myself with others, creating deep, soulful connection. So is leading workshops, including leading workshops in which I teach other people how to go inside and really get to know and love their own insides, the light and the dark, and to open-heartedly share themselves with others and to create deep, soulful connection in their life. So it's like a hologram. I need that healing. I need that gift for myself. And I share that gift with other people in such a way that helps them have that gift for themselves. So what your particular gift is remains to be seen. And I would love to have you join us and love to be able to support you and create a community that can support you in getting greater and greater clarity in what that particular soul calling or gift or purpose that you have is. And to, in the process, learn to love and accept yourself more fully and spread your love in the world. I can't think of a greater or more rewarding, or for me, more purposeful way of spending my time. So if any of that calls to you, I sincerely hope you will join us for the 10-week course we have coming up. And it will be my honor, my pleasure, my privilege to take that journey with you and be your guide on the journey of living a life of passion and purpose.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Tabor. And thanks to everybody who popped on the call this time. I just want to show you just a quick little shot of what the back end looks like, so you get a sense of what the curriculum and all kind of looks like. So you'll see this is kind of the course curriculum. And what you get here is you always know what the next lecture is. And essentially you can it'll go through and take you step by step all the way through. And then each week on Friday, lesson 1 will be released, then lesson 2, and you'll see exactly what we would like you to do, as well as talk with your buddy. So it's all very clear. And every time you come back into this space, you'll know exactly where you left off, exactly what else to complete. And it's pretty
Isn't that pretty? John, I appreciate you so much for creating it the way that you did. I'm really excited to work with people in that context and proud to be associated with this outfit.
All right.
It's part of my manifestation of my purpose is that as I have gotten more clear on it, other people, other beautiful people like John and Manal and Josh have been showing up to help realize it. So it's becoming not just my purpose, our purpose. And we find that that person's purpose and that person's purpose dovetail with our own. And we find a shared purpose that we then synergize on in bringing into the world. So rewarding, so happy. Thank you, John.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you for being on the call. Remember, the code is Purpose 2018. Purpose 2018. If you want to jump in, that's $75 off. And you'll be hearing from us soon. Tabor, any last words before we cruise?
That code is only good for the next 48 hours. So, like I said, decide, choose, find. Are you a yes or are you a no? And this is just to put a little, hold a little flame to your feet to help you just choose your powerful choice. And as I said, for super broke people, feel free to write in about a partial scholarship if that's what you need in order to participate. But we're making it as easy as possible to get you involved, because it's our purpose to spread the love in this particular way. And so we want to share it with as many people as do feel called. And I would be honored and love to have you join us.
All right, y'all. Have a great rest of the day, or if you're in Europe, have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.